Recently, the Urban Libraries Council, a national voice for public libraries, recognized the St. Paul Public Library as the first library system in the nation to receive the Top Innovator Award for racial and social equity.
So the library's work in racial equity is really guided by the city's work overall. All of our departments are asked to create racial equity plans every year, and those focus on three major strategic goals that we have. The first is achieving racial equity in our city organization, so that means our workforce, hiring, retention, promotions, but also our spending, our contracting. Where are our resources going in the city? Are we supporting minority-owned businesses as well as others? The second part is our programs and our services. So how well are we serving all the residents of the city of St. Paul? Are we equitable in our services and where and how they occur? Or are we unintentionally creating any kind of barriers or just less than equitable service? And the third area is how we are working in partnership with others in the community to achieve racial equity.
40% of our library staff are people of color, and it really began with a very strong vision by the library director to have our library staff really mirror what the community looks like in terms of racial diversity. And so it began with that work, with that vision and goal. It really began also with our understanding of how we're recruiting, how we are retaining our staff, and how we're interviewing. So really look at the whole process of onboarding someone, making sure that they feel welcomed, making sure that our staff feel that they have opportunities for growth and development. And so in terms of recruitment, we want to make sure that we were reaching a very large audience. We want to recruit from as far as wide as we can, even looking nationally. We also want to look at non-traditional places where we've recruited from before. And so we know that in communities of colors, that sometimes there are very strong informal networks. So one of the best ways that we found was to talk and have access to these informal networks. We found that we've been able to reach some very strong candidates, as well as the formal recruiting efforts. So the other piece of it is retention. And so we wanted to understand fully how we can better support someone to be successful at the library. It's not enough to make sure that they're here and we've hired them, but how do we keep people here?
We have done a lot of work looking at some of our programs and policies. Sometimes these seem like small things, but they really make a difference in customer service. So one project that we did was looking at our practice of requiring a library card to use a computer. We realized when we did an observational study that actually we were disproportionately affecting people of color who did not come with their library card or maybe didn't have one. So we tested not having to ask people for that, and it actually made it much easier for people to use our free public computers, and they were actually happier customers all the way around. So we eliminated that policy. So that's an example of looking at a particular practice or a policy in your work and trying to make it more equitable for everybody and work better for everybody.
This community keep their heritage, their culture, their religion, their tradition in US. So they usually reflect what they are, in the community. So Amharic is one of the languages spoken in St. Paul. It's around, I'm not quite sure exactly, but it's around 14 or 15,000 Amharic speaker. Then there's other Oromo is part of Ethiopian community, the big language spoken in St. Paul. In Minnesota, maybe more than 40,000. Every week, on average, I have 30 to 35 storytime attendee. We call them storytime in Amharic families. So we are like families, and they are so happy about it.
In my mind, success in the area of racial equity for Arlington Hills, for the library as a whole, for the city, is when we no longer have to mention racial equity, because it is just what we do. You know, it's just part of our culture. It's in our policies, it's in our services, and it's just a given.